Have you ever looked at a professional greenhouse and wondered why their tomato plants look like towering skyscrapers of fruit, while the ones in the average home garden often end up as a tangled, diseased mess by mid-August? It's not just about the soil, and it's certainly not just luck. Commercial growers follow a strict code of plant management that most home gardeners were never taught. Welcome back to the farm. I'm Jason, and today I'm pulling back the curtain on the industry. We are going to dive deep into 3 specific techniques that we use every single day to ensure our yields are 10 times higher than the traditional garden patch. These aren't just tips, they are biological hacks. If you implement even 2 of these, your harvest will transform from a hobby into a high-yield operation. Let's get to work. Let's start with the foundation of plant architecture. Most gardeners are afraid to hurt their plants, so they let every leaf and branch grow wild. That is your first mistake. Secret number 1 is the systematic removal of 3 branches from the bottom of every plant every single week. To understand why we do this, you have to understand the tomato's life cycle. A plant moves between 2 phases: vegetative growth, building leaves and stems, and reproductive growth, producing flowers and fruit. In a commercial setting, we want a perfect 50-50 balance. If the plant stays too vegetative, you get a beautiful green bush with 0 tomatoes. If it goes too reproductive, the plant stunts, produces 3 fruits, and dies. Here is the technique. Look at your plant and find the uppermost flower cluster. That is your North Star. We count our branches starting below that cluster. Those are your active solar panels. In the professional world, we have discovered that a tomato plant only needs 12 to 13 mature branches to provide all the energy required for maximum fruit production. Anything more than that is a parasitic drain on the plant's resources. So, once your plant has about 15 mature branches, you begin the cycle. Every week, you snip off the bottom 3. By doing this, you are forcing the plant to stay in a state of constant renewal. But there's a massive secondary benefit: airflow. Most tomato diseases, like blight and leaf spot, thrive in the humid, stagnant air at the base of the plant. By clearing the bottom 3 feet of the stalk, you create a wind tunnel that keeps the plant dry and the pathogens at bay. Plus, when those tomatoes turn red, you won't have to go on a treasure hunt to find them. They'll be right there, hanging in plain sight on a clean, professional stalk. Now, the second secret is the hardest one for home gardeners to accept because it feels like you are throwing away your hard work. We are going to talk about fruit thinning. If you look at a heavy cropping variety, a single cluster might set 6, 7, or even 8 tomatoes. Your instinct is to keep them all. You think, more tomatoes equals a better harvest. You are wrong. When a plant is carrying too much fruit, it enters a state of reproductive exhaustion. It senses that its offspring are numerous, so it shuts down the production of new flowers and focuses entirely on ripening what it has. This is why many gardeners see a big flush of tomatoes in July, followed by a total shutdown in August. On our farm, we prune every cluster down to exactly 3 or 4 tomatoes, no more. If we see a tiny 5th tomato or a late flower at the end of the branch, we snip it off without hesitation. We also look for sucker shoots that sometimes grow directly out of the fruit cluster. These must go immediately. Why do we do this? 2 reasons. First, the remaining 3 tomatoes will be significantly larger, meatier, and more flavorful because they aren't competing for sugars. Second, and more importantly, you are tricking the plant. By keeping the fruit load light, the plant believes it hasn't finished its job yet. It continues to grow taller, continues to push out new leaves, and most importantly, it continues to set new flower clusters. This is how we get plants that produce consistently for 6 months straight instead of 6 weeks. It's about quality and longevity over raw initial numbers. Finally, let's talk about the invisible factor that ruins more gardens than pests and weather combined: water chemistry. Secret number 3 is pH correction. Most home gardeners water their plants straight from the hose or a well. If you are in an area with hard water, your pH is likely between 7.5 and 8.5. To a tomato plant, that water is practically toxic. Not because it's poisonous, but because it causes nutrient lockout. At a high pH, the chemical bonds in the soil tighten up. Elements like iron, phosphorus, and manganese become physically impossible for the roots to absorb. You can add all the fertilizer you want, but if the pH is wrong, your plants are literally starving in a sea of food. Tomatoes are acid-loving plants. They want their root zone to be between 5.8 and 6.2. In our commercial greenhouses, this is non-negotiable. If our pH drifts to 7.0, our production drops by 30% overnight. How do you fix this at home? You don't need a lab. You need a simple digital pH meter and a way to acidify your water. While some use vinegar, it's unstable. Commercial growers use sulfuric acid. A pro tip for the home gamer? Go to an auto parts store and buy a small bottle of battery electrolyte. It is high-purity sulfuric acid, and it is incredibly cheap. A few drops per gallon is usually all it takes to bring alkaline water down to that golden 6.0 mark. Please be careful. Wear gloves and use a meter. But once you see the vibrant, deep green color of a pH-corrected plant, you will never go back to plain tap water again. This is the difference between a 5-pound plant and a 50-pound plant. These 3 secrets, systematic pruning, fruit thinning, and pH management, are the holy trinity of commercial tomato farming. They require a bit more effort and a bit more discipline, but the results are undeniable. Farming isn't about letting nature take its course. It's about partnering with the plant to help it reach its genetic potential. Try these methods on just a few of your plants this year. Compare them to the ones you grow the old way. I guarantee you'll be amazed by the difference in health, yield, and taste. Thanks for hanging out with me on the farm today. If you found this helpful, hit that like button and subscribe. I've got a video coming up on the biggest mistakes I see gardeners making that you won't want to miss. Until then, happy growing, and I'll see you in the next one.